Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Glady Baradaran. She has a love for organizational development and has been doing HR for about 12 years in Canada. I have Connie Whitman. She is 20 years in business. She wants to do sales that are not icky, sleazy, or manipulative. She wants them instead to come from a place of love, caring, and respect. And finally, I have Steve Anglin. He is the CEO of We Solar CSP. He does solar power plants, long duration energy storage, and solar industrial processing heat. Yeah, I don't know what any of those words means. You have to ask him.
Yes.
But today, we're going to talk about, is personal development becoming an individual rather than an organizational responsibility? And Connie, I would love you to kick this conversation off.
Yeah, here's my feeling on it, because it's my opinion only. But leaders who feel that development of the employee is not worth the money, the effort, the time, I feel like they're really missing the boat. And then they say, well, we don't have any loyalty, right? We have a revolving door. Well, you're reaping what you're sowing, right? So I do believe that the organization, the leader itself, has an obligation to the employee to grow them to where the company needs them to be, the organization needs them to be. But I also believe as a leader, we have to support where the employee's career wants to be as well. So that I feel as a leader, that's our responsibility. The other piece of it though is, yes, the employee should also have a stake in the game. But if the leader isn't fostering that conversation and it's a newer employee, they don't know where to go to ask for help or to ask for that support or to ask for the training. So I think that it's both responsibility, but I do think the leader should take a real serious role. And I believe the company should have an organizational culture where development is a piece of it. That's my take on it.
Awesome.
Connie, you have answered everything I wanted to say. I feel like we talked before this, every single word. I would respect exactly what you said. I add to that. I do not see a world in my head that the organization has no responsibility. They don't think it's important and they just put it aside. Oh, it's just a cost for us. That's just crazy. I don't see a world like that. However, many organizations, they have this name, we have development for you. They don't give the time, neither the support, nor the energy for the employee. So I add into that you don't have to just have it, you have to live it. You have to make it happen. And it's extremely important because the employee engagement over and over in many research, it shows when you take care of your employee, when you develop them, when they feel like you're there to be involved and support them, your engagement goes high, your profit goes high, the productivity goes high.
Steve, you're the CEO of a company. Where do you stand on this idea of developing employees?
I think they were 100% correct, and they're experts in the field. I'm going to just talk about my own experience. I'll talk about work and personal. From a work perspective, I worked on Wall Street for 25 years, trading derivatives, collateral management, risk, IT. After about 17 years, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, do you want to go to grad school? And I said, sure. And I studied overseas. I went to Rutgers, but I ended up studying overseas in Turkey, Prague, and in Poland. And from that experience and that development of traveling and studying overseas, I met the co-founder to my company. I mean, I could go a lot into how the company can affect someone's life and really have a big role in the development of their employee. And then I can also look from a personal perspective, but we'll stay on the company right now. With my company, we're in renewable energy. So this area, if you look at IT, healthcare, and renewables, those are three big areas that are really growing right now. And I find that a lot of folks are really interested in joining, or they want to learn, and they want to maybe find themselves being pushed out of a job, or they don't have the right skill set. So they want to come into this space that's growing. So not to get too deep into that, but I think the company can have a big role in STEM, bringing people into a world that's growing and they don't have the right skills. So from a work affecting the development of an employee, I think there's a role for that. I also think there's a big role on the individual side as well, but I'll stop there.
Yeah. So if I'm an employee and I'm working for an organization that isn't developing me, am I better off to go find an organization that will help develop me, or am I better off to try and somehow finance my own development in some way? What do you think?
I would go with both. Definitely, you have to always have your antennas open. When it comes to personal growth, obviously you have a responsibility. You have to take it serious. If your employer is offering it, you have to put the time to do it. And the employer can actually say, hey, we have this for you. You haven't been using it. And what's going on? On the other hand, you have to always look for what's out there, because yes, the lawn is greener on the other side. There are these possibilities. Do your research and align yourself, but keep continuing on learning and align yourself and find something that helps you to grow more.
And the only thing I would add to that, Glady, is that I agree with everything you just said. Also, sometimes I feel like leaders in organizations perhaps are fearful or aren't naturally good at supporting the employee. It doesn't come natural to them. So the other thing, if I was an employee and I'm thinking, wow, I like what they're saying, my company doesn't do that, they might go to your leader, go to whoever you report to and say, hey, listen, I was thinking, what are some of my options? Look at your handbook, your employee handbook. I also went for my MBA in the evening, Steve, like you. My company paid for that as well. You had to get the certain thing. A lot of companies have that. If you don't look for it, you might miss it. So look in your handbook, go to your leader, say, this is what I'm thinking. Can the company support me in any way? Otherwise, now you know what you're dealing with. Either look for another job or go on your own adventure and develop yourself if there's something specific you want to learn. But ask because it's not always offered, forthcoming if your leader's not aggressive. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Do you think that it is a perk of a business for them to offer this kind of development, whether it is getting a master's degree or, leadership development or whatever that is that they might do, bringing in coaches? I have companies that have brought me in to help their employees. Is that a perk that companies could do well to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to what Connie said, I also agree with her. But what I would say is, if you're in a company and you're really just not doing well and you're not hitting your performance goals and you're not really fitting in and you can't do the job, right? You need to look inside to yourself and say, okay, is this the right job, right? And I think Glady said, keep on trying, I think that I would pump the brakes and say, okay, who am I? And this is the personal development. Be curious, find out who you are and what you're good at, or what you like to do, and what your purpose, find out what your purpose is. And then for me, I did that. I was on the trading floor on Wall Street for many, many, many years. And then now I'm in renewables, which is a complete shift. So I would say from a personal development, the company, absolutely. As soon as you get your MBA or as soon as you, and it's not just an MBA, right? You have to learn something when you're in grad school. You have to be able to articulate it and execute on that when you get out of school. But I think that personal development is key. Really paying attention at work and really learning and not just going to work just for the paycheck. You really want to come out of there with the skill to be able to articulate and do that skill. So I think if we're going in that direction, I think people will be fine. A lot of people just go for the paychecks, and I think you want to do something different then.
That's the difference between living your default life and living that most fulfilled life. Yeah.
I know we're out of time, but just a real quick point to build on what Steve is saying. So on the corporate side, let's say you're paying for someone to go for grad school or undergrad or whatever other certifications that are out there in the industry. Even if the employee leaves while they're with you, you're still gaining from them and the knowledge they're learning and hopefully coming back and applying, which just makes your organization more dynamic. So even if they leave, what have they done while they're here? And people are appreciative that they're going to give back to the organization exponentially. So you can get some benefit even if they end up leaving.
That old joke, what if we develop our employees and they leave? Well, what if we don't develop them and they stay?
Oh, yes, 100%. And one last thing to add, hire for attitude and train the rest. There's a lot of good people out there that they might not have all the competencies and stuff, but not on that specific thing. Let's say solar power is brand new, but I'm sure you can hire them when they have that willingness and attitude and then train them to become good at their job. So training development is always a yes, always.
Yeah, the competency to learn and the willingness to work. Those are two things you can't train. So that is our 10 minutes. I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I appreciate it. It's been a great time, and I look forward to speaking to each of you again really soon.